Welcome to the Wear Wag Repeat podcast. I'm Tori Mistick, here with my dog Lucy. Together we're interviewing cool, creative women entrepreneurs whose work is inspired by their dogs. Do you dream of working alongside your dog? Then sit, stay, and listen to the latest episode. On this episode, I'm switching things up a little bit. A lot of my podcast guests and fans and followers and listeners have asked me questions about myself. They say that they don't really know so much about me. Although I have the opportunity to ask lots of questions of other people, I don't often talk about my journey and how I've grown my dog mom business. So on today's episode, you are going to learn how I got started in blogging, what made me want to grow my Instagram account, the different sources of revenue that I have for my dog mom business. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I wish I had known earlier in my career doing this. And then finally, I'm going to talk about some of my plans for the future. So stay tuned and take some notes. I guess I'm going to start a little bit in chronological order. This is my first time doing a solo episode of the podcast, so please excuse me if it's a little bit awkward asking myself some questions, but I think it's going to work out. So I'm going to start by saying, hey, Tori, how did you get started in blogging? People ask me this all the time. Actually, just today, I was out at a local boutique and I told someone I was a dog mom blogger, and they're like, how did you get started in that? Because it is a little bit random. So a long time ago, I actually had a different blog. Back when I was in college, I had an assignment to create a blog, and I created something I can't even remember what it was for the college project. And then that kind of inspired me to start another one that I was a little bit more interested in, and it was called ecofashionistas.com. And I think you can possibly still go to ecofashionistas.com and see some posts there. I'm actually not sure about that. But it was a blog all about eco-friendly fashion. So I was talking about organic cotton and hemp-derived fabrics, and then recycling fabrics and reusing and thrifting and all that kind of stuff. So I was able to showcase some like DIYs and things that I was doing. I did some things on like earth-friendly wrapping paper that was reusable fabric and things like that. And I actually went to Eco Fashion Week in Vancouver, Canada, because of that blog. That was the first event that I ever went to where I had press credentials as a blogger. So that was super cool. And I did that for a few years, but then I just got burnt out because eco-friendly fashion wasn't necessarily my passion. And so it's hard to keep up with something. Blogging is very much a passion project. If you are not really gung-ho about what you're blogging about, it's just not going to last very long because it's very, very time intensive and very involved. And it can take a very long time to get a reward depending on what you're trying to get out of it. But if you're looking to make a career of it and make money, it's going to take some time to build up that audience. So you want to make sure that you love what you're writing about. So the eco-friendly fashion thing just kind of like fizzled out for me. And so I went a couple of years with no blogging outlet, probably 4 or 5 years. I didn't have anything. And then I decided I just needed some sort of new creative outlet. I've been doing social media management work for 9 years now. And so this was like maybe 5 years ago. My actually blogiversary of Wear Wag Repeat is coming up on May 18th. So that's really exciting. So I've been doing Wear Wag Repeat for 5 years. So this was maybe a little bit more than 5 years ago. I started thinking, I wish I had another creative outlet. And I started doing some research online. I've always loved fashion, right? And of course, I've always loved my dogs. At the time, I had Lola, and Lucy she's 6 now, so I had just gotten Lucy, and I was taking a million photos, and I did some research online, and I found that a lot of fashionistas, a lot of models and fashion designers and just fashionable people also had dogs, but they didn't always feature them on their blogs or on their social media accounts, but I knew that they had dogs, so I knew that they would be kind of interested in learning about stylish dog mom things, even though they weren't really talking about it themselves. I sort of identified my target audience really early on. And then I came across, through my eco-fashion days, I knew about a website called Independent Fashion Bloggers. And they had a lot of resources and a really wonderful community of independent fashion bloggers where they would do link sharing posts and all kinds of stuff like that. And they actually started doing a conference called IFB Con. And it was in New York City. And I went to that about 5 years ago, or maybe a little bit more. And I wanted to just learn what had changed in blogging. And 5 years ago, a lot had changed since my eco-fashionista days, and everyone was talking about affiliate marketing and how to make money off their blogs. And there was celebrity bloggers there, like Ami Song. At the time, I actually didn't even know who most of those people were, and I like to think of them as like the most famous people that you've never heard of because they have millions of followers and millions of readers, but your average person might not really know who they are. So that was really eye-opening, and I just got a lot of ideas and a lot of inspiration and a lot of technical advice on what to do. So from that conference, I knew that I wanted to start my new site on a WordPress platform. I didn't want to use Blogger, which is what my old site had been on. And WordPress kind of became more of the industry standard. So I knew that much, and I just kind of came home and started my own template and started blogging. And I would have, my friends or my sister or my boyfriend at the time take photos of me and my dogs. I would get dressed up in outfits or whatever I was wearing that day, and I would pose with the dogs. I would also include some party things, like some very Pinteresty things like an ombre cake that faded from light blue to dark blue, but it was a cake for people. And so my content was a little bit all over the place. I would do like some home decor stuff, maybe a little DIY here and there. And it was just a little bit all over the place. But I was totally happy with it, and it was really just a hobby and a creative outlet for me. I had no idea that I would be sitting here doing all the things that I'm doing now when I first started. So how exactly did I get here, right? I went to some other conferences a couple of years ago, about 3 years ago. I went to a summit called Alt Summit. That year, it was in Salt Lake City. And that was something that I went, and I wasn't sure if I was going in the capacity of my blog or if I was going more so as a social media consultant. I wasn't really sure what hat I was going to be wearing when I was there. If you're someone who has multiple side hustles or multiple gigs, then you probably know what I'm talking about. When people ask you what you do, you kind of like panic and cringe for a minute because we all do so many things, right? So I went to Alt Summit and didn't know really what I was doing, but I was so inspired and it was so transformative, and I'm not even exaggerating when I say that it changed my life because I was able to meet other creative women entrepreneurs doing what they loved. And I didn't really have a lot of role models for that in my life, and I didn't really necessarily know that was an option. So when I saw all these women that had like businesses doing balloons for parties, or there's a woman who I've met at every Alt Summit since I started going 3 years ago, who she has a business selling stickers, and she has like a lot of employees, and she's super successful. And that just blows my mind. And so the first year that I went to Alt Summit, I was just so inspired, and I came out of there with so many ideas on top of like technical things that I learned. If you have an opportunity to go to a blogging or social media conference, I highly recommend it because you'll just learn so much being in the same room as other creative people like you. On my other business, Mistick, I talk a lot about finding your tribe. Your vibe attracts your tribe, right, guys? It's so valuable to be surrounded by people who get what you're doing and are kind of in the same sort of wavelength as you. And I don't always run into people like that in my day-to-day life at home in Pittsburgh. So meeting people, and especially creative women entrepreneurs like that at Alt Summit, totally changed everything for me. And that time that I went 3 years ago in Salt Lake was the time that I really decided to start taking my blog seriously. And I was like, a light bulb went off, and I thought, this really could be a business. So that summer, I enrolled in an online course that was run by Melissa Griffin, and it was called Blog to Biz. And that was another amazingly transformative thing that I enrolled in. Through that, she just had so many technical trainings and videos and lessons and lectures and all sorts of stuff that taught you how to technically actually turn your blog into a business. And a lot of her stuff didn't necessarily apply to my Dog Mom blog because it was a little bit more geared towards coaches and people who share information. But I was still able to apply a ton of it to Wear Wag Repeat. And then last year, I actually, since I have lifetime access to the course, I went back through it and applied all the lessons to my other business, Mistick, which I narrowed down. And now I provide Instagram coaching to creative women entrepreneurs. And I've been able to apply all of Melissa's stuff to that business as well. So that was hugely, hugely helpful. And it really taught me about how to put your content in a certain order that's going to be more compelling and more interesting for people to read and kind of build up your own community and your own fan base. She also really taught me a ton about having free incentive downloads for people. So when I do a DIY on my blog now, I usually will show most of the instructions, but then I'll have a free little download PDF if you want to get a printable one-page version of the instructions. Or I might have something like I might show a recipe for something, and I might show beautiful pictures of Lucy enjoying some dog treats, but I won't give you the ingredients until you download this free little PDF thing. So that was something that I learned from Melissa Griffin, and that has been really, really great. And I think it drives a ton of traffic. She's also kind of the Pinterest queen. So I get a lot of traffic from Pinterest, and she helped me improve the content on my blog so that I get better, more meaningful content, more meaningful traffic from Pinterest. So through the Blog to Biz course, I also met a web designer, and her business is called Branded by Brit, and she redid my entire site and my logo and came up with my branding colors. This was probably the third piece. If I were to count Alt Summit and then Blog to Biz course, having Branded by Brit do my website was number 3. In terms of, the pieces that really made a huge difference in me making dog momming my business, right? So Britt, I reached out to her. She was part of the course. So we actually met in the online Facebook community for Blog to Biz. And I just said, I really want someone to redo my blog site. I was really frustrated at the time. I couldn't get my header image to look how I wanted it to look. There was always this black bar at the top of it, and it was driving me crazy. And so I had no idea what she was going to do and how much she was going to transform it. And she made my blog look so insanely professional that I was so confident in showing it to people and sharing it with people, and it really made it feel to me like a real business. She also created the most amazing logo for me that as soon as I saw it, I could just imagine it plastered all over everything because I love it so much. And she, if you haven't seen my logo before, which is kind of everywhere, but in Wear Wag Repeat, she hand illustrated Wag so that it looks like a little dog, and it has a sort of minty teal colored collar, which is the same color of Lucy's collar in a lot of the pictures on my website. So it just made so much sense for my brand, and it was so on point for everything that I do. And that really gave me the confidence to start reaching out to other bloggers, to brands, and just telling people that my site existed, because I was really proud of how it looked, and I was very confident that it looked very, very professional. So my site before wasn't bad, but if I were to see it now, I would probably cringe because it's probably super dated by now at this point. But just having a site that was really polished made a huge difference for me in being able to reach out to brands. And I think when brands like potential sponsors or things like that look at my site, I think that they automatically, instantly think that I'm very professional, which I am. So that's been really, really great. Another thing that has been hugely helpful in helping me get started and evolving with my blog is the Blog Pause Network. So if you are anywhere in the pet industry, which if you're listening to this, I'm guessing that you are, you should check out Blog Pause. They have been around for actually 10 years. I just went to the 10th anniversary conference recently. And I was lucky to be selected a couple of years ago for a special little, almost like a mentoring program that they did with people who wanted to get into sponsored content. And I went through almost like a little online course with them and a handful of other bloggers. They partnered us with a brand called Only Natural Pet, and we got to do 2 campaigns with them, but they sort of babysat us through the whole process. So familiarizing us with, how to work with brands, how to create content that they're going to like, that's going to perform well, and then importantly, how to adhere to the FTC guidelines. So if you're blogging and getting any kind of sponsorship or payment or free product, you need to adhere to some guidelines to make sure that you let your audience know that your stuff has been sponsored or is an ad. And so it was really, really valuable to learn from people who are in the industry who are sort of not really bloggers as much, but they're more, they educate bloggers and they really talk to the brands personally. So to be able to get insight from them on how to make brands happy, that was huge for me. So speaking of all of these things, I want to talk a little bit about, let me ask myself a question. Tori, what are the sources of revenue for your site? How exactly do you make Wear Wag Repeat a business? So, Tori, that's a very good question. So the main source of revenue on my blog has been sponsored posts, but I only started generating revenue through those posts in January of 2017. I think I actually might have gotten my first check in December 2016, so a little bit earlier than 2017. But it started out slow. And I've, over the past year and a half or so, really figured out, how to discover these types of opportunities, and then also how to make the brands really happy with the content that I'm producing. So if you're looking into getting involved in sponsored posts and you've never done anything like this before, I recommend starting out small and testing the waters and trying to form some relationships. So blogging and social media, it's all about relationships, right? So if you want to work with a brand, it would make sense to sort of build up a friendship with them, let them know that you exist before you reach out and say, hey, give me some money, right? So the way that I approached that, I was lucky to go through this Blog Pause mentorship program. But even before that, I came up with a strategy that I wanted to do unboxing review videos. So unboxing videos are very, very popular online still. This was about a year ago. And I came up with a list. I had a little spreadsheet in my Google Drive of probably 20 different brands that I could do unboxings for. So there are a lot of dog-related subscription boxes. So there is Pup Town Girl. There is, of course, BarkBox and Pup Joy. And I'm blanking on some of the others, but there are so many. So I came up with this list. And I started reaching out to dog subscription boxes, and I would find their contact info and email them. I think it's a lot more professional to email someone rather than sending them a DM on Instagram. So at the time, I would send them an email and suggest that they send me a box for free and that I would do an unboxing video and share it on my social media, and that they would also be able to share it on their social media. And what do you know? Most of these people said yes. So that was really great because I was able to share these videos. All of the brands then also shared the videos, and I got, a little bit of leverage. People started to recognize me and know me, and the brands loved the videos that I was creating. So that was really important. I think starting out by providing amazing quality content before you're even asking to get paid is the way to go. So that's what I started doing. And then I did discover there's many networks that you can get involved in that that coordinate sponsored content with brands. So there's one called Activate by Blog Lovin'. And that's one network where I've gotten a lot of opportunities where they're sort of the middleman and the manager, almost like the agency sort of, and they work with all these different brands and put together opportunities that bloggers can pitch for. And if you're selected, then you get to do the content and you get paid, right? So that's really fun. And that's been a major way that I've generated revenue on my blog. I also will just continue to email people. I have a media kit that's about 3 pages that shares all the different stats of my blog. I update it every month or 6 weeks or so with my new follower numbers because my numbers are always growing and always changing. So I'll update my follower numbers. And then also every couple of months, probably every 3 or 4 months, I change my rates. I usually increase them a little bit because my follower numbers are growing and I'm putting a lot more work into everything each month that goes by. So I think it makes sense to also raise my rates. So all that stuff has really been growing. And then now, instead of doing just sponsored content on my blog, I also do some stuff that's only on Instagram. So that kind of gives you a little bit of flexibility. You can charge less maybe for an Instagram post than you would for a whole full-fledged blog post. It's a lot more work. So that's a nice way to sort of get an introduction to brands. So that's something to check out. And if you want to know more about working with brands, you can always reach out to me. I'd be happy to answer any questions. So now, what do I wish that I knew sooner? That's a very good question, Tori. I really wish, I'm obsessed. If any of my friends are listening to this, they will know that I am obsessed with growing my email list, like really obsessed. So I take every opportunity to add more people to my email list. And that's the number one thing for me. So you may have heard people say before that you cannot always depend on social networks to stick around forever. So it's wonderful to have 32,000 followers on Instagram, like I do. But what if Instagram ceases to exist tomorrow? Then I would kind of be out of luck. So that's why it's really important to me to grow my email list, because that's a list of names that I own and that I can email as often or as infrequently as I like. And then I also have recently figured out ways to make my email content a little bit more meaningful and useful and interesting to my subscribers so that they keep opening it and maybe tell their friends about it. So instead of just emailing people about what I'm doing in my latest content, now I also started including links from other dog moms across the internet. So I always have a list. I subscribe to all of my favorite dog mom blogs and other blogs as well. And I'll just come up with kind of a theme for each email, and I'll look and see who's been blogging about what. I recently did one that was about washing your dog in the springtime, because everyone's dogs get very dirty in the spring with all the mud. So I included some posts from my blog, but then I also included stuff from this girl who I know, Jen, her blog, and she blogs at 2brownnewfies.com, and she had done a DIY paw wash station. So I included a link to her blog as well. And some people who opened my email clicked and went over to her page. Some people clicked and went over to my page. But it's all good because it's providing value and it's creating a community. And that's what's most important to me and my business. So I think that kind of the moral of all of this is, if you've been listening to this whole discussion of me rambling on and asking myself questions, in order to create a dog mom business, for me, it's really about creating a dog mom community. Once I can develop a community of people who really love what I'm sharing and what I'm talking about, then I have a much stronger fan base and I can turn that into my customers down the road. So speaking of down the road, what exactly are my plans for the future? How am I going to grow this? So this summer, I'm really excited. I'm planning on introducing an e-commerce component of my website. So I'm working on creating some exclusive products, and I'm going to start small with just a few different things, but I think they're going to be really, really awesome, and I'm super excited about them, but I can't tell you exactly what they are yet. But I'm working on creating like a little online shop on wearwagrepeat.com. So that's something that is going to kind of be a new direction for my blog and my business, and I'm super excited about. And then I'm also going to get Lucy certified as a therapy dog. I've been meaning to do this. I meant to do it with my last dog, Lola, because she was just the sweetest sweetheart you ever met. And Lucy is just so wonderful and so calm, and I think she makes such a difference in people's lives. So I really want to get her certified as a therapy dog so that we can go in person to different places like retirement communities and nursing homes and things like that for people who don't have access to Instagram. So they can't see Lucy on there and she can't make them smile by that. Instead, we're going to go see them in person and hopefully leave an impact on some people's lives. So I'm also pumped about that. That's another thing that we're going to be doing, just, making my life more and more dog obsessed. And then I can't talk about my plans for the future without talking about my biggest dream for Wear Wag Repeat, and that is to have a line of dog and dog mom products at Target. I'm just putting this out there into the universe. I tell people about this all the time. This is my biggest dream in life. Can't you just picture an amazing collection of like casual skirts with pockets in prints that coordinate with leashes and water bowls and just fabulous things. I think it would be the greatest thing ever. So I'm just putting that out there in the universe. If anyone listening to this works at Target, then you know how to contact me. Send me a DM at Tori Mistick on Instagram. So I hope you guys enjoyed this not one-on-one, but just me on me episode, talking about how I am building a dog mom business at Wear Wag Repeat. And if you ever have any questions, you can always reach out to me. Of course, I answer every DM that I get, and I try to reply to every single comment. If you enjoyed this episode, you can also subscribe to my show through Apple Podcasts or Google Play or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And I would love to hear about what you're doing and how you're building your dog mom business. Thank you for listening to the Wear Wag Repeat podcast. You can fetch show notes for this episode at wearwagrepeat.com. If you like what you hear, please subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And until next time, Lucy and I will see you around the dog park.